What happened with the strategy? Like, how did I end up P10? So we were looking good at one point.
Yeah, we need to look into that second stint or balance or car. We check.
How did McLaren or behind me get, Mercedes, or behind me get all the way up there?
Early stopped at lap 3 with the R, then went to the end with the R. The R was a superior tires.
Have you ever witnessed how a mistake of seconds can destroy an entire Formula One weekend? Today I am going to show you one of Lewis Hamilton's most devastating radios, which marked a before and after in his adventure with Ferrari. What you're going to hear isn't just frustration, it's pure desperation from a completely disoriented 7-time world champion. What exactly went wrong? To understand the magnitude of the disaster that Lewis Hamilton experienced at the 2025 Las Vegas Grand Prix, we must first go back a few hours before qualifying, when everything seemed to be in order. Since the arrival of the Ferrari team to the paddock of the most high-profile urban circuit on the calendar, confidence was in the air. The SF25, a single-seater that has been harshly criticized for its inconsistency, seemed to have found favorable ground in Las Vegas. The car was agile, stable under braking with good weight transfer in low and medium speed corners, and surprisingly effective traction when exiting the twistiest areas of the track. Hamilton, accustomed to reading between the lines the competitiveness of his car even before stepping on the track, did not hesitate to appear optimistic to the media. His statements were unusually enthusiastic. "I have a good feeling with the car. We can do something special here," he said after the third free practice session. And it was no wonder. For the first time since joining Ferrari, he felt that the car responded in a predictable, almost intuitive way. Training performance was solid. Hamilton remained within the top 6 during all 3 sessions, with competitive times in the short run and a reasonable degradation in the long run. Ferrari had done its homework. The new aerodynamic package introduced in Las Vegas with a modified rear diffuser and adjustments to the flat bottom seemed to have partially resolved the problems of rebound under heavy braking, a defect that had dogged them during the first Grand Prix of the year. But then, like an ambush in the middle of the night, the rain came. Conditions changed in a matter of minutes. The track that hours before offered predictable grip became a treacherous surface. Temperatures dropped rapidly and with them, the ability to keep tires in their operating window. And this is where everything started to fall apart. The SF25 showed its true colors under adverse conditions. Instability, lack of traction, oversteer on corner exit, understeer on entry. A technical chaos that not even a driver of Hamilton's stature could control. The contrast was brutal. From feeling prepared to fight for pole position, Hamilton began to fight, literally, not to be eliminated in the first round of qualifying. The atmosphere inside the Ferrari pit became tense, with engineers reviewing engine maps and telemetry in real time trying to find immediate solutions. But there was no time. The rain did not let up and the room for maneuver was almost zero. What was experienced at that time was not just a drop in performance, it was an implosion. And the most painful thing for Hamilton was seeing that while he was struggling to keep the car on the track, his teammate Charles Leclerc with the same car was able to adapt better to the conditions. It's not that Leclerc was fighting for pole, but he did manage to advance comfortably to Q2. That difference exposed an uncomfortable issue. Ferrari still doesn't understand how to make both drivers find the same level of confidence under extreme circumstances. Thus, in a matter of hours, the Las Vegas GP went from being a golden opportunity for Hamilton to becoming one of the most frustrating experiences of his legendary career. And all that was just the beginning. Because the worst would come a few minutes later, with the most bleak radio he has broadcast since signing with Ferrari. Few moments in modern Formula One history reflect so clearly how a simple misunderstanding between driver and engineer can ruin not just a qualifying session, but the work of an entire weekend. What happened during Q1 of the 2025 Las Vegas Grand Prix with Lewis Hamilton and his engineer Riccardo Adami was not an isolated error, but the symptom of an invisible but lethal fracture in the coordination of the Ferrari team. The situation was critical. Hamilton was on the track with intermediate tires, desperately seeking to improve a time that left him out of Q2. The track was in changing conditions, with sections wetter than others, and each lap was a roulette. The pilots had to take risks to the limit to get vital temps. Everything depended on having accurate information and perfect synchronization between the track and the wall. But at Ferrari, that connection failed at the worst possible moment. There were just a few seconds left before the end of Q1. Hamilton was completing his flying lap, and crossed the finish line just before the checkered flag fell. that, according to the regulations, enabled him to make a last attempt. It was a golden opportunity, perhaps the only one, to avoid disaster. But as he passed the finish line, he saw the red lights on at the starting traffic light. He interpreted that the session had ended, and at that moment he took his foot off the accelerator. From the pit wall, his engineer was trying to correct it. The dialogue was as short as it was devastating. "Are we safe?" "No, keep pushing." "I saw the light. I saw the red light." "No, push." This seemingly trivial exchange of words was enough to lose the most important lap of the weekend. Because although Ferrari had previously reported that the time would be fair, and that it had to maintain the pace, that moment of doubt, of visual confusion on the part of the driver, was irreversible. In Formula One, where everything is decided in milliseconds, there is no room for uncertainty. There is a deeper dimension here that many overlooked. On the track, pilots interpret signals in real time under maximum stress. The red light that Hamilton saw was not the one for timing, but rather the physical traffic light that indicates the closure of the pit lane. But in the heat of the fight, in the middle of the curve, that distinction is lost. And that error in perception can be fatal if it is not anticipated by the wall. The serious thing here was not only that Hamilton made a mistake, but that Ferrari did not reinforce the indication with sufficient clarity and urgency. "You're in. Push again. Don't look at the lights. You have one more lap." That type of surgical communication is what separates a team that wins championships from one that loses them. This was not just a failure of execution. It was a system failure. Because Ferrari knew that the visual conditions were confusing, that the lights could be misleading, and yet they did not do everything possible to avoid that misinterpretation. There was no direct warning, there was no firm voice saying, "Forget about the light, go all out." And at this level of competition, that omission costs a lot. The debate soon exploded in the paddock. Bernie Collins, former Aston Martin strategist, was clear in his analysis. The team did its part. They told him to push. But if the driver hesitates and lifts, the lap is lost. Jenson Button was more blunt. At that level, you should know that if you cross the line on time, you can continue. The lights can confuse you, but you have to know the rules. But here an unavoidable human nuance appears. Hamilton, in that moment, did not act like the cold and calculating champion that everyone knows. He acted like an insecure driver, confused by an ambiguous signal, pressured by a lack of confidence in his car and his surroundings. And that, in the case of a 7-time world champion, is as unusual as it is worrying. The consequence was brutal. For the first time in his career, Hamilton qualified in last position without a penalty or breakdown. And all due to a combination of factors that, added together, reveal an uncomfortable truth. Ferrari has not yet built the operational structure capable of supporting a driver like Lewis Hamilton in extreme situations. And if that doesn't change soon, what happened in Las Vegas will be just the first of many silent collapses. What happened between Hamilton and Ferrari in qualifying for the Las Vegas GP did not take long to generate a wave of opinions in the paddock and in the specialized media. It was such a shocking episode that it left the entire Formula One community wondering, who was really to blame? Was it pilot error, team negligence, or a dangerous combination of the two? The first voice to rise clearly was that of Bernie Collins, a strategy engineer with a past at Aston Martin and McLaren. His analysis was surgical. Collins defended Ferrari's wall action, arguing that critical information was provided in a timely manner. From their perspective, the team had accurately warned that the margin was tight and that Hamilton had to keep pushing until the end. For her, the error was visual, psychological, human, a conditioned reflex to a red light that did not actually mean what Hamilton believed. On the other hand, what happened in Las Vegas also represents a first public fracture in the relationship between Hamilton and Ferrari. Up to that point, everything was enthusiasm, diplomatic statements, and gestures of mutual commitment. But Ferrari's silence after the mistake, added to the desolation shown by Hamilton on the radio, suggests that the honeymoon is over. From here, the real part of marriage begins, where performance rules and pressure reveals what words try to hide. There is also a more powerful symbolic reading. Hamilton's mistake when seeing the red light, lifting his foot at the wrong moment, works as a perfect metaphor for his still incomplete integration at Ferrari. It's not that Hamilton isn't capable of performing. The thing is that it is not yet completely aligned with the team's codes, signals, and internal language. And in Formula One, this lack of synchronization is as dangerous as a driving error. This episode marks, in a way, a turning point, because from now on, Hamilton's every step will be observed with more skepticism. Expectations are no longer inflated by the excitement of his signing, but are beginning to seep through the harsh reality of results. And that implies additional pressure for a driver who, although he is one of the greatest of all time, is also deeply aware that this may be his last great adventure in the category. Therefore, what happened in Las Vegas is not just an anecdote. It's a warning. An early sign that the path you have chosen will not be easy, and that, to be successful at Ferrari, it is not enough to bring talent, experience, and titles. We must rebuild the culture from within. You have to align each word with each action, each decision with each driver, each message with each second. Ultimately, this moment defines the real beginning of the Hamilton era at Ferrari. Not the day he signed his contract, not even the day he got on the SF25 for the first time, but the day when for the first time he felt that he was alone, facing not only his rivals, but the internal shadows of a team that still does not know how to win. Let me know in the comments what you think about all this.